District of Conservation is sponsored by the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, better known as CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thanks for listening to the program. Welcome to District of Conservation. I'm your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. I'm very excited to be revisiting with Charles from HOWL for Wildlife. We've had HOWL on many, many times. Lots of timely things are happening. They released a new documentary, which even if you're not in California, very important to watch and know what happens when your state managers kind of go awry. And we're going to hear what HOWL is working on for 2026 priorities at the federal and state level. Charles, great to catch up with you. What has HOWL been up to before we go into the documentary and what's happening in California?
So before Catalina, outside of Catalina, everything we can. I think our biggest impact that we can make, not just us, but everybody, is educating the non-hunting public. So I've really been focusing on that and talking not really less to hunters, but certainly making space to talk to the non-hunting public. I live basically in San Francisco, so I have a perfect example and area and test grounds, whatever, to do that. So I've been focusing on that through literally just conversations, podcasts and conversations, giving out wild game, asking them, because sometimes they don't really have opinions. So I'll make it easy for them. Like, well, how do you feel about wolves? How do you feel about managing wolves or predators or mountain lions, things like that, or trophy hunting? What does that mean to you? Right. Those are always good ones. And then they usually have something to say about that. And we get somewhere in the conversation. It's just all about having the conversation. Back to wolves, we've been working on the bill, the Livestock Pet Protection Act to delist. Yeah. Working on that and trying to drum up support for that, which has been harder than I thought it would be, since everybody likes to talk about wolves. But we're still getting a lot of attention on that, but I thought it'd be a little bigger. And just new legislative season is starting now, so we'll see what's coming up. I know we're going to be helping out a lot in Colorado. They've got a number of issues on banning fur and trapping and all kinds of things going on. So I'm working with Dan Gates there. I just met with him last week at the Sheep Show, and so we're going to be helping out there. And then, whatever comes, we're always kind of just let's see where we can help, and that's what we do.
How about the billboard idea you guys floated a few months ago? And I chimed in. I was like, to see something in downtown DC would be epic. I don't know what the parameters and the logistics and the feasibility of that looks like, but are you guys looking to do billboards more so across the country?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, thanks for reminding me on that. That's all about, it's all about funding. I got to get the funding to do that, but yes, I would love to focus on putting up billboards or different types of media and subways or whatever it is that are forward facing to the public, and then have a landing page that's built for the general non-hunting public where they can learn about what is conservation, how is it tied to hunting, things like that. Simple things that, to me, it seems like most people, they just don't know about it at all. If they do know anything, they've been educated by some of the anti-hunting media that's out there. So, and I think not only can we refute that, I think we have a much better argument. Once you go below the surface and you really dig into it, it really changes people's minds. So, that's like a huge goal for me. I would rather do that than anything else, because it changes the landscape of our entire conversation. Like what you talk about, what everybody talks about every day, and what do we want to accomplish? We got to get that general non-hunting public more on our side, not really to be hunters, but to understand what it is,
The conservation component is important because I don't know if you're paying attention in Virginia. We have a slew of crazy legislation, which would not only hurt like Second Amendment, but even Pittman Robertson, and they're trying to invoke a 11% tax. So we'll talk about that afterwards and maybe offline. I'll feed you guys some information, because what I've been seeing and looking into like scares me as a gun owner and a hunter here. They haven't explicitly gone after hunting quite yet, but we have a lot of PETA animal rights activists who won at the state level in the General Assembly now. So I'm worried that in the future we could see some bans. Like we still have, of course, a right to hunt and fish amendment in Virginia. So that will be very difficult for them to dismantle. That's a good assurance and a good protection. But I'm worried that they may try like incrementally, from fur or coyote bans or something of that nature. They've experimented or toyed with it, like rhetorically speaking, but never at the legislative level. So you might even see some states like Virginia that need some help and demand for attention. But I want to focus.
Yeah, you reminded me really quick. We are working on a right to hunt and fish in Ohio.
Yes.
With IFPR. That's
perfect.
They got so many things going on. That's a big campaign Great. We're going to be doing. Yeah.
Good. And then is also, and I know we'll talk more about this in other priorities, but also New Hampshire, I think, is also introducing. Delaware, I saw.
I just saw that.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I didn't know about that one. Yeah. So yeah. I mean,
yeah, a couple are floating, which is great because those, as we talked about before, will really guard your state against these rewriting attempts. And I wish Colorado had something like this, but I'm not sure how soon we can see that there. But it's interesting. But let's go to my home state and your state, California. So California, and much like New York and a couple of the other states, have traditions rooted in hunting. It's a pretty outdoorsy state. There's a lot of, like, where I grew up in Orange County, I lived for a time in Coto de Caza, which is Portuguese for hunt preserve, and John Wayne and all these other, Hollywood luminaries used to hunt there well before I lived there. But in the 70s, maybe 60s, 70s, like that was their playground. And a lot of places in California have vested traditions in hunting. And you guys just released a really groundbreaking documentary called Killing Catalina. For those who are unaware of Catalina Island, there's a town called Avalon. It's a beautiful little stretch of heaven. There's bison, there's deer, there's lots of fish if you'd like to go fishing. Great fishing area, lots of protections. I think nearby there's even some national parks. I forget how close the Channel Islands are. And there's probably some, BLM or some sort of forested land there too. But it's a little wonderful slice, outdoor paradise. And you guys are highlighting the fact that state managers, and there was a development after the release of the documentary, which I'll have you go into. So you were trying to highlight an issue that hunters are best equipped to manage the deer population on Catalina. And then a development happened right after you released it. So give us a gist of what the situation was, the documentary, the release and premiere that you had this past week. And then what are some of the actions that have been taken since, ignoring kind of what your findings in the documentary pointed to?
Yeah, so hunting has been on the island for a long time, and there has been a PLM program because Catalina Island is private land. California still manages the deer on the island. They're recognized as a big game species. So to hunt on the island, you basically turn in your tags that you would use on the mainland and you transfer them for these PLM tags. Then you can hunt on the island. You can be a local and hunt there. You can be a local, you can be a guest of a local. You can be a mainlander and do a DIY hunt there, which certainly has some issues. Or you could go through the outfitter and, you pay them for lodging and food, and they bring you all around and all that stuff, and you can hunt with them. So there has been deer on the island, but then in the last couple years, really 2023 is when I heard of it, was these talks of eradication. And that's when we dug into it. First of all, I couldn't believe it was true when I first heard it. Like, there's a place in Southern California and they want to kill with helicopters at the time 2,000 deer. Like, no way. It's not true. Can't happen. Not in California. To say the least. But so we went down there to find out what was going on, and there's a lot of issues. Is the population of deer on the island actually 2,000? And when you look at it, we have some grids over the island and what 2,000 deer would actually look like. It kind of becomes unbelievable. And then we found out how the Conservancy got those numbers, and they're using what's known as spotlight surveys, which they're not very accurate at all. So what they'll do is they'll come up with a number for the roads that they drive, a number of deer that they see, and they extrapolate that number to the size of the island, right? Well, we refuted that, and we actually brought a team, some thermal drone pilots there, basically just to show are deer on the island the same densities? Is it representational across the island? And we found, well, no, that's not true. I mean, of course it wouldn't be, but we kind of had to show that. So we do challenge the population number. We don't know what the population number is, But the problem is they don't have a management plan based on their own population number. They have hunting, but it's not focused on reducing the population. It's actually focused on keeping a healthy number of deer. But their entire claim is we've tried hunting to reduce the number of deer and it hasn't worked. And so I'm like, okay, let's look at management. Where's your management program? What do the words say? What are the definitions in your program? They have nothing that would have reduced it. So even if their number of 2,000 deer was true, they have no reduction plan that would do that, which would primarily be a doe-focused harvest, because that's how you reduce the population numbers, right? So that's kind of the gist of it. That's what we want. We want real data and real science to be applied here. A, how many deer are on the island? We find that out, and then we come up with a management plan. So they're making claims that we've tried this, we've tried this. They even told me, when you watch the documentary, you'll see the conservation director say, oh, we've had a doe-focused plan for more than 10 years. And at the time when I asked her, I didn't know any better. She said they had that. And then I go and look, they never had that. They never had that at all. And I'm like, hold on, you guys are lying about this now? So it is absolutely crazy what happens and just what you hear and what you see in the documentary. This is what we're asking CDFW, because CDFW has the authority, because they're managing the game populations, right? So they have the authority to approve this. When we had a premiere on Catalina Island this past Monday, January 26th. 170 people showed up, mainlanders and locals, in the town of Avalon, which was really cool. On that day, and this was publicly advertised, and the Conservancy knew about it and all that. On that day, the current interim director of CDFW signed the CEQA papers. Now, didn't sign the RMP permit yet, which would allow the Conservancy to eradicate these deer, but she signed the biggest obstacle to this whole thing on that same day. I'm not really into conspiracy theories, but I do think it had something to do with the timing of this, because when we make a huge push, a lot of people find out about it. We're going to cause some issues, for CDFW and for the Conservancy with this getting out. So I feel like they kind of wanted to get ahead of it. But to my knowledge, the RMP, the Restoration Management Plan, has not been signed yet. So that's what we are focused on now. That's the action that we just put up for people to reach out to CDFW, reach out to the governor, various legislators that are involved in this, that have some influence, where we can pause this and say, hey, let's do this right. Because I'm not denying that deer don't have impacts on island ecosystems or wherever else. I know that they do. But I believe these mule deer have value, and eradication gives them no value whatsoever. Mm-hmm. The plan is to leave them there to rot. Now they'll say, oh, the ones we can pick up, we're going to feed them to the California condor. Okay, that's not going to be most of the deer, because those are only the deer that they kill that are alongside of the road. It's a complete waste. There's a better way to do this. And it's so much deeper than I thought it would ever be when I first got involved in this. And I really didn't even go here to make a documentary. It just kind of turned into it as we were there. I was just kind of recording for social media, or to just document some answers so I could go back and research. And then I found out, whoa, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was. And there's an agenda here. And I'm completely convinced that the science is being stretched here to meet the Conservancy's goals. And that's just because they just don't want hunting.
They want to extirpate the hunter from the landscape. And we see this very clearly, in California, in the Golden State. And we've seen this in New York. We've seen this in other states. Colorado is another perfect example. So if they try to extirpate hunters from the landscape, so what you're saying and what you can surmise from the documentary and just their actions is they're fine with perhaps inviting a wildlife crisis and engaging in wanton waste just to remove hunters because they find the practice abhorrent or whatever justification they have. So they're fine with inviting more waste and not letting hunters manage and wasting taxpayer money, which is funny to me that that's their reasoning, and they don't talk about like, oh, we want to steward the people's money better. No, they're fine with exhausting different means if it looks foolish, and even if it's costly, just to deprive people the opportunities, and they're probably fine with kind of ruining the pipeline with which Pittman Robertson is kind of funneled through California. So they want to probably deprive that opportunity as well. That would come through licenses that would go to helping with the hunt over there. So what is the takeaway that people outside of California should have? They should not trust some of these conservancy groups, or maybe there is a group like this somewhere else in not only California, but in the United States. I bet there are other groups that are trying to create obstacles. I think here and I look to here in Northern Virginia, it's not necessarily a group, but the Animal Welfare Group of Arlington County, which is close to Washington, D.C., has said, we don't want to have a managed hunt of deer, even though they're too overpopulated. We want to do sterilization, or they agreed to hiring sharpshooters rather than allowing like an extended hunting period. Like, I will happily pay $30, to get a bow license, additional one for this county, and help them get deer off their hands. Like, I will happily do that as a Virginia hunter. But they seem like to be going through hoops and jumps to waste more, to not engage in conservation practices if it means removing hunters from the landscape because they just dislike us and don't want us to actually contribute to conservation.
There's a lot of different conservancy groups, and I can't really comment on all of them. People have their opinions. I haven't paid attention close enough. You know what I mean? And I don't want to stray away from this. What their claim is that the deer are invasive to the island, right? Because they were brought there. Mm-hmm. Well, so were the bison.
Yeah. When
you watch that part of the documentary, it gets really interesting because they don't want to get rid of the bison. It's a tourist draw, right? One of their main missions is to protect the island fox. Well, and this gets a little philosophical, I guess, but it's considered endemic and native. Well, there's plenty of pages from the indigenous people who lived on the island, before the Tonga Gabriano, I think it is. They brought the fox there from the mainland, right? Same thing with a bunch of other species. And yes, they've been there for, thousands of years. People also brought the deer there to this island. And CDFW has not recognized them as invasives because there wouldn't be a PLM program. They don't have PLM programs for invasives. It's a game species. What we're trying to do is there a way to have an amount of deer on the island without it? They're claiming the deer are going to destroy the ecosystem. Well, they've had tens of thousands of goats there and tens of thousands of pigs there and cattle and everything else in the past that they've gotten rid of. There's only the deer and the bison now. And the deer numbers have stayed the same. According to them, it's the same amount of deer that were there now as there was in 1948. But they're blaming everything on the deer now. They're even blaming wildfire risk, listen to this, on the deer. And
crazy.
It's just a wild one. I want to get to a carrying capacity. What's the carrying capacity for the island? I don't want them all to be gone. And even if they did need to all to be gone, I'm not convinced of that. But if they needed to be, I think there's a better way to do it than through waste. Right? I'm trying to be as reasonable as I can here. And it's just something, they just don't want to deal with it. So they'd rather spend tens of millions of dollars hiring a company to come in and eradicate them all and leave them to waste.
That's such a shame, too, because that could have trickle-down effects for the other species they claim to protect and want to kind of covet and keep in perpetuity there. But we see where these like rewilding experiments or preferential treatment or kind of isolated cherry picking of data, like we often hear sometimes in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, that the wolf presence has led to like certain shrubbery to proliferate. And I know there's a lot of questions about if that's valid or not. And similar with the apex predators or species that they cling to, saying like we have to remove one, sacrifice one versus the other, things of that sort. But what has been the reaction? Have you gotten any interesting reaction from, let's say, the 80% of people that you're trying to target with this documentary? Like, what have been the reactions since the documentary has come out that you've been impressed by or surprised by?
It has been overwhelmingly in support of what we're trying to do here. And this isn't just from hunters at all. I mean, we were actually on this issue partnered with the Catalina Island Humane Society. So we
Interesting.
have oh yeah. No, there's an interesting group of organizations and folks who normally aren't on the same side of things, right? The only negative to this are people who used to work with the Conservancy who were involved. And they're like they're purists. They want everything gone. They just want their, Trask yerba santa plants to be there and that's it. Right? Um, I honestly, it's insane how many people are in support of this. It really is on all sides because people are giving value to the deer. Of course, hunters have the value of just deer themselves, but we also have value with the hunt and the experience and the meat that we get to bring home. People who aren't hunting, they're putting value in the mule deer's life, and they want them to be there. They enjoy seeing the mule deer there. The islanders who have grown up with these deer. I spoke with a guy the other day. He's like, I've been here for 85 years. So he's 85 years old. He was born on the island. He's just telling me all these stories, growing up as a kid. It's really important to these locals that these deer remain. And the Conservancy, the folks who run the island, the leadership, they're never locals, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So you get people come in, they're there for 5 years, and then they leave and new leadership comes in. There's high turnover. So there's all this conflict, this kind of island politics and conflict going on. I just say we find a better way. I mean, I think that's the reasonable thing to do.
Has there been interest? I'm not sure what like the Department of Interior could do because maybe they don't need to intervene and perhaps it's inappropriate for them to do so. But yeah. I feel like the documentary should be on the radar of the admin, especially Fish and Wildlife Service. Like I suspect the director would probably be wondering like, why is this, obstacle happening here? Of course, they have lots of priorities to focus on. So I'm hoping whoever is watching or listening from the admin, because we do have a couple people from there in Congress who do listen on occasion. So I hope that they do at least like maybe put this on the radar of the secretary or perhaps Fish and Wildlife Director, because it seems like they are going to be intervening in rare cases. Like they have even said they may be intervening in the Colorado wolf case with the ballot box biology. So I wonder if they would take an interest here similarly, if they see that there is some sort of obstacle here. But you've said that you've got a coalition of different people who are unlikely allies, and in most other cases, like a humane society is usually not working with hunters. It's very rare. Maybe in this is perhaps the only case I've heard where a humane society chapter is working with a pro hunting outfit like yours. So I'm hoping that our correspondence in the documentary, as with the reach it's already had, it's as of our recording, it's 35,000 views on YouTube or just overall across social media. What's the view?
Just on YouTube. We put it up 2 days ago.
On YouTube. Okay, amazing.
Yeah, that's just on YouTube. On social media, it's I don't even know how to calculate it because it depends on when you want to start. But in the last couple of weeks, it's probably over 1 million views for sure. Just
amazing.
The stuff, the content we're putting out on social media. Yeah. But YouTube,
the storytelling is great. I mean, you just see the teasers and the clips, and it's like any one of us who have been to Catalina. I've only gone once when I lived in California, but it's such a beautiful little place and gorgeous, and with the island culture is very unique. It's different from other islands I've been to on the East Coast and even abroad. But it is a little slice of heaven. Like people used to go there for vacation. I mean, it's a good vacation spot. It's great for fishing, good food, good people. And that's a microcosm of other problems that are transpiring across the U.S. too. Like this is not the only enclave because people think, well, it's isolated. It could never happen, in other places. But this is occurring in other places. Colorado, of course, is not isolated. Stuff like this is happening there. Like I said, in Arlington, Virginia, you have this kind of battle over deer management playing out. You've had this in New York. You've had this all over the place. For a population that is respected but does need to be managed. But some of these people, these managers just don't know how, they don't understand that hunting is the most humane way to do it. Interestingly enough. So like the visuals are gorgeous. Like anyone who's never been to Catalina, but appreciates good visuals, I think will like the documentary, and what you guys are putting out there. And I encourage everyone, of course, and we're going to link to the documentary in the show notes and put it out there for everyone to watch. But Charles, what else? You talked a little bit about some of your priorities. So I'm hoping there could be some change. through the documentary, maybe leading to the governor and the department in California to perhaps get some common sense into the head of the Conservancy. But what else are you all focusing on besides the wolf efforts, besides the fish and hunt amendments? What other priorities are you looking into? Other state efforts, blocking state efforts, positive state efforts? What else are you guys watching?
Well, with legislative season just starting, it's hard to know what's coming. But I do know in Oregon, there's still, I don't know if it's called IP28 anymore.
Yes, I did see that. I did see that.
So there's that. And that depends on how much traction that gets. It's a little wild. Like, I'm not sure how much legs it has, but if it does, we will be on that. And that's a bill that they're trying to get through the ballot to basically stop all hunting, all fishing, any type of raising or breeding or of animals, like anything to do with livestock, like whatsoever. It's wild. If that has legs, we'll certainly be on that. And we work with our partners in Oregon for that, mainly the Oregon Hunters Association. So, Amy Patrick and those folks, so they know what's going on. So they'll let us know if they need our help. Going to be helping out Dan Gates, CRWM in Colorado. There's a number of issues going on there around, oh boy, everything, but fur and, hunting in general.
Is there another ballot initiative that is coming potentially?
Possible ballot initiative. Yeah. But we don't know, again, like if it's going to have legs or not. So I'm going to be meeting with him soon to get the details on that. And then we talked about the wolves, of course. Other than that, it's kind of like what's coming down the pipe, for other states that need help, or for our state that needs help. We will have the bill from last year that's going to go into this year in California, and that's where we can use hounds to haze black bears, so to keep them out of problem areas. And then that bill would also give the decision to use hounds for lethal take of bear back to the commission. It was taken away through the legislature. But if that passes, then that decision would go back to the commission, which is where it should be. And then we can have that battle with the commission. Our black bear population here is between 60 and 80,000, which is almost double what the previous, management plan and population estimates were. CDFW did a really good bear study, and they have a new bear management plan out. So, it's a lot of bear. It's more bear than any other state except for Alaska, right? Like by far. And that has effects on deer and kleptoparasitism with all the mountain lions we have here. Now we have wolves here, at least 300 that are recognized. I think those are the numbers, but there's more than that. They just haven't recognized them all yet. So there's a lot of issues going on. And like you said, there's all that stuff, all the advocacy stuff and all that. But I really want to start talking more and putting more time and effort and money into reaching the non-hunting public. Talk to them about wolves, talk to them about predator hunting, talk to them about hunting in general, the connection to food, the dollars that go into it, why hunting is a conservation tool. Those are my favorite kind of conversations. And those are my favorite kind of people to talk to because I don't know what they're going to say. You know what I mean? They're not the choir. So I learn from them and they learn from me, and I'm not there to argue with anybody. It's just human to human conversation, not over social media, not even over Zoom, just person to person and over dinner sometimes, if they'll let me, let's eat some wild game together.
You guys have started to do some efforts on that. And I was actually thinking back to the billboard idea. Without doing the billboard, you should rely on us in different cities. So like man on the street interviews. Yeah. I would love to be helpful in DC. So like you and I have some camera people, or we can get some camera people to like film us interacting with people, asking them about questions. So like maybe a good step for you to do in the different cities, like talk to Dan in Denver, have people in New York. So like you do man on the street interviews in these like busy epicenters of different towns, and people feature like friends like yours, allies that you work with, and we could, do man on the streets. And I've seen this for other issues, like really explode on social media and like heartfelt, good conversations, like approaching people, not berating them, but trying to debate those topics. Maybe that's something you guys should look into, man on the street interviews.
Oh, you're 100% on the dot. I think the man on the street interviews are definitely one of the ways to go, and I would love to find, I don't know what you'd call it, partners to do that, in whatever city, whatever state. I think it'd be absolutely fantastic, and it's what we should be putting more effort into. I think as a community and just the hunting community as a whole, and we should be doing that. So
absolutely, no, and any way I can help, especially in the East Coast, let me know.
You'd be awesome at that. No, I mean,
yeah, I would.
Yeah, let's talk about
me.
that.
I'm a resourceful. I can usually lend a hand. I'm usually in the area when I'm not traveling. So I think it'd be fun to see what happens in Washington, D.C. Like we get tourists, we get people coming here, filming near the National Monument. It's always fun to do, or somewhere in downtown Washington by the streets and cool restaurants where people eat very nice meat, but they may not like wild game meat. So, somewhere over there to do something like that. But Charles, as we round out the conversation, where would you like to send people? So obviously I'm going to include links to the documentary. I want everyone to watch that who's listening and watching, to the website, to the submission forms. How can people get involved with what you guys are following and keeping tabs on?
Well, the website's howlforwildlife.org, and we have an action center on there, and you can sign up to get the newsletters and what you just got in your email. Specifically on Catalina, it's in the action center, so you'll find it there. There's a big infographic. Can't miss that. Same thing with delisting wolves. You'll find that there. And I think we got something on the feral horses as well. That's a big issue. So we always have a lot of things going on with the wild feral horses and Burro Act. So we're gaining some ground there. But howlforwildlife.org. Instagram is where I put most of the content. So that's howl_org. And get caught up with what we're doing and get involved.
Wonderful. I always appreciate you coming on the show, Charles, and any way we can be helpful to shine a light on this. More than happy to. I think it's fascinating. As a Californian, I love that there is a documentary like this on a little slice of heaven in Catalina and Avalon. So kudos to you guys for doing this. I hope it attracts a lot of attention even more. And any way I can help, even in my writing too, I think I want to supplement our conversation with a column about this and talk about like what's at stake when environmental or preservationists kind of interfere with conservation practices, like reminding people this is what could be at stake and kind of the unlikely allies you guys have developed. I think that's a very fascinating angle too. So I'm going to work on that as well. So thank you again for coming on. Keep up the great work, and let's revisit maybe the next quarter or something just to see what you guys are working on or what should be focused on here.
Absolutely. Let me add one more thing for you to think about.
No problem.
Because Catalina is an island and it's isolated, everybody, hunters and non-hunters alike, even the Humane Society, they're all expressing that responsible, ethical hunting is the way. Isn't that interesting? Like, there's no other way to do this. I mean, besides eradication. You either have hunting or you have eradication. And all of those people, I think there's really somewhere to go with this. All of those people are siding with hunting is the way to do this. It's such a cool, it's just,
you guys are onto something.
Imagine if that was our world outside of Catalina, right? I mean, that's been one of the most interesting things to me to see and hear. It's just, think about that. It's pretty cool.
I am thinking about that. That's like I said, for a follow-up writing piece, I think that'll be really interesting to highlight and be like, hey, we can give a concession, and say like, wish they would be more cooperative, at the national level. And we thank them for their support here, but that's wonderful. And I will definitely stew on that. And I hope the listeners do too. Charles, thank you again for coming on, and let's revisit again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this installment of District of Conservation, I would love to know your feedback. Send it my way. Please be sure to leave us reviews on Apple, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are played, and also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to never miss a beat nor a guest announcement. Thanks so much for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please share the podcast to those who may be interested in learning more about these critical natural resources, environment, energy issues.